Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So today we'll be taking a look at the biggest changes coming next patch 8.15. Also, I'm doing a $200 RP giveaway. The link is down below, boys and girls, free to enter. Definitely check it out. And as usual, if you guys end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, but let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So starting things off is of course going to be the biggest change coming this patch, and it's going to be the Akali rework. I'm sure some of you have already seen what the Akali rework is and what she can do, but I'll give you a quick TLDR and my thoughts. So Akali's passive is an interesting one, where hitting people with a spell creates a ring around them, and crossing that ring, whether it's going in or out, procs it, giving you a bonus damaged auto attack. And her abilities synergize with this quite well to just kind of reproc this over and over and over to just consistently keep getting the extra bonus damage. Her Q ability is kind of the bread and butter, just spam ability, where you can use it to heal, you can use it for harass, you can use it to set up your combos and your passive, and it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but I mean, again, you can spam it quite frequently. Her W is very similar to her old Shroud, but now it kind of shapes out into like a donut shape almost that also gets obstructed by terrain. But the biggest change is the fact that no longer will towers be able to see her under the Shroud, so you can literally tower dive and then play the tower aggro properly, and you won't get hit by a single tower shot while also killing people under the tower. Her E ability is like a Lee Sin Q, where she backflips, throws a shuriken. If it lands, you can use it once again to dash towards that target. You can also use this ability to jump backwards towards your opponents to line up maybe a good ultimate or something like that. And you can also use this on your own Shroud, to where if your shuriken connects with your Shroud, you can actually just go ahead and reactivate it and fly all the way back to your Shroud. So you can do that, go in for a big play with your ultimate, do all the stuff, go really deep, and then press E and then fly back to safety to your Shroud. And then you have her ultimate, which is very similar to her old one, except this one is a skill shot that only has 2 charges and a regular ultimate cooldown being about 1 to 2 minutes. The first dash does a little bit less damage but gives you a quick stun, so you can set up your combo after you land it. The second one is essentially a massive damage kind of execute ability. So my thoughts on Akali is the fact that she is without question more difficult to play, but she also has a lot more options. The champion honestly feels a little bit questionable in certain situations because her Q ability feels a little bit underwhelming, but her E ability also feels a little bit underwhelming with how fast the shuriken flies, so it can be a little bit hard to land when you're not used to it. But on the flip side, I believe her passive, her W, and her ultimate are all very strong. The next thing I want to quickly talk about is, I'm assuming next patch, they're going to be releasing a kind of new pool party themed League of Legends Summoner's Rift, where you're going to see buffs like blue buff, red buff, having these kind of, snorkel gear and whatnot, and like they're ready to surf, which is pretty cute. And then they're also going to have some new music playing at the beginning of the game, and they're also releasing new skins related to the pool party theme, which are going to be for Caitlyn, Gangplank, and Zoe. And the final thing is they're also releasing new loot that you can open up with the Hextech crafting system that is going to be kind of volleyballs based on whatever role of champions that you want to get, and also having this kind of new crab bag that's supposed to be pretty OP. So if you guys want me to do another $100 opening of these bags, then let me know by simply hitting that like button and or writing a comment. But now let's jump into the changes happening to champions themselves, starting off with Fiddlesticks getting a nerf towards his E ability, where the cost is not only being increased, but the magic damage per bounce is also being lowered. Now Fiddlesticks honestly is pretty damn good in my opinion. He's probably one of the best supports at the moment just because of just how obnoxious he is in the laning phase, how strong his fear of course is, and his overall engage power. This nerf is directed more towards the laning phase, but at the end of the day, this really just feels like a slap on the wrist. Doesn't seem like it'll actually hit him too hard, and I don't think this is going to change a whole lot. But next we have a change that I do think is going to change quite a bit, and is going to be towards Fizz. So if you're not aware, in the previous patch, Fizz did get a mini rework towards his W, where his W now is essentially a new ability, but I don't really think the W itself is actually all that good, and he came out to be quite underwhelming, so the buffs to him this patch are actually quite big. Starting with his W, you can see the active bonus magical damage has been increased by 10 at rank 1 and all the way up by 50 by rank 5, which is actually quite massive. The active AP ratio is increased by 20%, and the on-hit damage AP ratio is increased by 10%. That in itself is already a decent buff, but it doesn't stop there, because as we move on to his ultimate, you can see the AP ratio across the board has just been heavily increased on his ultimate. So whether you land the very low kind of ranged ultimate, the medium range, or the full range, the AP ratio has been increased by 30%, 20%, and 10% respectively. So in other words, landing that close range shark, where it's just like a really small one, it's increased by 30% AP, so even if you do that shark, it's still going to do some quite respectable damage. So now it doesn't even matter that his W isn't really all that great of an ability, because these buffs will make Fizz very strong, and I'm going to be probably playing him next patch because my goodness are they just completely overbuffing him. Next up, we have some changes coming over to Irelia, where some changes are good and some changes are bad. So starting off with the base stats, the base AD is being increased and the base HP is also being increased. Moving on to her passive, you can see here it is also being buffed, now starting at 4 going up to 17 rather than starting at 1 and going up to 12. But then as we move on to her Q ability, you can see it's not all good news because the damage is actually being lowered on the Q ability by 5 at every single rank, the total AD ratio is being lowered by 10%, and the range on the Q is being lowered by 25. Not a huge fan of lowering the range on her Q ability because that just changes the way she feels, and I don't think that's a good thing. Then moving on to her W, the damage reduction is being changed to now being 50% at all ranks rather than starting at 45 going up to 65. And then moving on to her E, you can see it now deals full damage to monsters back from being only at 50%. Now this makes me feel like maybe jungle Irelia might actually become a thing now. But on top of this, the damage is being lowered by 10 at every single rank, and the range is actually being lowered by 50. And then you have the range on her ultimate also being lowered by 50. Again, not the biggest fan of just changing the range on certain abilities, because it is going to make the changes kind of feel a little bit awkward for the first few times that you play the champion, especially if you're already really used to it. But all in all, some pretty decent changes coming over to Irelia. Again, don't be surprised if you start seeing jungle Irelia in the next patch. Moving along, a quick nerf coming over to Kindred. Now, Kindred is definitely a top tier jungler at the very moment because of the several buffs that this champion has received over the course of the past few patches. So hopefully these buffs will put this champion a little bit more in line. So starting off with the W, Wolf's Frenzy. The Wolf attack speed scaling has been lowered from 50% down to 25%, and then the ultimate's cooldown has also been increased by 20 seconds at every single rank. So obviously not enough to just completely gut the champion, but it'll definitely hurt the champion by just a bit. Next up, we have a mini rework coming over to Lee Sin's Q. Now, I did release a full gameplay on Saturday of this change, so if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. But let's see exactly what Riot has done if you're not aware. So the second part of Lee Sin's Q no longer deals 8% of the target's missing health as damage. The AD ratio on the first and second Q has been increased from 90% bonus AD to 100% bonus AD, but the base damage has actually been lowered by 5 at rank 1 and a total of 15 by rank 5. But now the second Q has a kind of new effect that states now deals up to 100% increased damage based on the target's missing health. So the second Q at rank 5 will deal 150 base damage by rank 5 with plus 100% bonus AD, but it'll scale all the way up to 300 base damage with a 200% bonus AD only for the second Q based on missing health. Again, only the second Q on top of also the damage that the first Q deals as well. Think about that, that is insane. So if you go a full damage build, maybe like an assassin lethality build for Lee Sin, his Q now will just absolutely burst people so hard. Moving along, we have a quick nerf coming over to Morgana, also a pretty damn good support at the moment, where the mana regen has been lowered, but the change that really matters is going to be towards her E ability, Black Shield. The cost has been increased from 50 at all ranks to now being 80 at all ranks, almost double. Now this nerf is actually going to be hitting her a little bit harder than it may seem, because especially in the laning phase, 80 mana for an ability is a lot, especially a rank 1 ability. Next, we have a quick buff coming over to Olaf towards his Vicious Strikes, the W ability. The attack speed has been increased by 15 at every single rank. Since I'm not an Olaf player, I'm not entirely sure how much this will actually affect him in a positive way, but I guess we'll see once it hits the live servers. Following this, a quick nerf coming over to Quinn, a champion that has just recently risen to popularity, and Riot is already nerfing her down. So the nerf is as follows: the base armor is being lowered by 4, which is actually a decent amount, and her passive's damage is also being lowered based on level. So thankfully not an absolute gutted kind of nerf, but I mean it is going to affect her by just a bit, and it'll make her a little bit weaker in the laning phase overall as well. Next up, we have a quick buff coming over to Syndra, one that I'm personally very happy about because I am considering picking up this champion because I honestly just love playing Syndra. I don't know what it is, the champion is just super cool. But the buff is towards her Q ability, where it's been increased by 10 at rank 1, but then by rank 5 it equalizes back to being 230 base damage. We also have a buff coming over to Thresh because this guy is not really seeing a whole lot of play at the very moment, since there's just so many other supports like Pyke, Morgana even, Fiddlesticks, Rakan that are just so much more useful and reliable. So the buff to Thresh is as follows: Dark Passage, his W, the cooldown on this is being lowered as you rank it up, and his E ability Flay, the Collection Souls AD ratio has been increased by 10% at rank 1, but then equalizing back to 200% by rank 5. The next thing I want to talk about are some buffs coming over to the AD carry items. Starting off with Essence Reaver, the AD has been increased from 70 to 75. Then you have Infinity Edge that has a new recipe, so instead of being this annoying and awkward double BF sword, it's now a BF sword and a pickaxe, which is just much better. The total cost is now 200 gold cheaper, however, you do lose 10 AD on this ability now. The crit as true damage is now being lowered to 10% from 15%, but it now has a unique passive that states against minions and monsters deal 50% of bonus critical strike damage, so it makes it a little bit easier to CS, which is pretty cool. Then you have items like Phantom Dancer, Rapid Fire Cannon, Rune's Hurricane, and Static Shift that have all had their costs lowered by 100. But on top of that, Static Shift has also had its critical strike chance lowered by 5% because this item was a little bit too strong. We also have Mercurial Scimitar that had its AD lowered by 15. However, to make up for that, the total cost has been lowered by 200 as well to make it a little bit more of an affordable item since, let's be honest, people don't really get Mercurial Scimitar for the AD. I mean, it's nice that it's there, but the main thing people get it for is the MR and of course the CC removal effect. And we also have Stormrazor that had the recipe slightly changed to now being 2 longswords rather than 2 daggers. The total cost has been lowered by 400, however, you do lose 10 AD and you also lose 5% attack speed, which I honestly think is actually a worthy trade-off. Next up, some changes coming over to the support items. So items like Ancient Coin have actually had their cost increased by 50. The combined cost for Frostfang has actually been lowered by 50. Relic Shield had its cost increased by 50. And the Nomad's Medallion has also had its combined cost lowered by 50. And last but not least, we also have Perfect Timing. The stopwatch transformation time has been increased from 8 minutes to 10 minutes, so a definite buff to the champions like Zed, maybe champions like Talon, and other champions that rely on burst. But either way guys, that's gonna be it for this video. There you have it, all the new changes coming to patch 8.15. A lot of big ones as well, especially the Akali rework, some more buffs coming over to the AD carry items as well, which AD carriers of course want. And definitely watch out for Lee Sin and Irelia jungle, and especially Fizz and maybe even Syndra. But thank you all so much for watching, boys and girls. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, check out my other videos as well, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.